If you have said to yourself, I should write that, or if someone has said to you, you should write that, then I'm talking to you because you need to write. And that's why you're tuned in to yWrite. Hi, welcome to yWrite. I'm your host, Angela Grout. Thanks for tuning in to another episode to find out why writers write so that you can start writing your story too, because we all have stories and we're all writers. So today in studio, I have a guest, and he is from New Jersey. However, he's the director of religious education at St. Rose de Lima in Chicopee. So live from Chicopee right now, I would like to introduce my guest, Michael Chirichella. Hi, Michael. How are you?
I'm doing quite well. How are you?
Good. Thank you for coming in.
My pleasure.
I'm so excited to have you in studio because, I tell my audience all the time about different writing techniques, writing styles, and you're very unique because, first of all, you do ghostwriting.
Mm-hmm.
He does ghostwriting. So we're going to find all about, like, if he's talking to ghosts or what a ghostwriter is and how he can make an income from this. And you also write, like, horror.
Mm-hmm.
Scary, scary stuff. You and I met because we teach religious education.
Yes.
You're the director of religious education in Chicopee.
Mm-hmm.
You have 2 books that are here on the table. We're going to talk about them a lot because there's a lot to go into. And, one of the things that I think my first question is, why did you get into fantasy writing and, mystery and horror and, all of this scary stuff?
I like to read those things. I like to watch those things. And I've always said, like, you should be writing what you like to read.
Yeah.
Because, if you've only read books about King Henry VIII,
yeah,
write a book about King Henry VIII, and clearly that's where your passion is. That's where your interest lies. So it just naturally felt right? This is what I've watched and read, and, that's where I can create. That's where my strength lies.
I mean, it is true. You do write what you know, write what you like. And, sometimes I see it as if there's a book out there that I can't find, then I'm probably the one who has to write that story, even if it's just for me. But, so I want to get into the ghostwriting, but I want to talk about these 2 books because, you have, this one here is a partnership of light and shadow. Mm-hmm. And, the cover is very pretty. It's kind of fall. I like the colors. And, you and I were talking before about, choosing covers and getting things published. And, you did one self-published and one you had a publisher. Mm-hmm. So can you talk to us a little bit about how you, got the words in this binding all beautifully formatted and put together?
Yes. So for this one, I was actually on the website I use for ghostwriting, and there was a man looking to start his own publishing company, and he told me he would pay me to use if I had any finished manuscripts, because he wanted to train his employees on them. So he actually paid me to use my book. I retain the rights to it, and I get a portion of the profits every time one is sold, and then he gets a portion. And
so you didn't have to pay to get it formatted or edited or copy, each line done stuff. So did you just sent him like a Word doc?
Yes. Yeah, he said, look it over again, but if it's, done and mostly edited, I could send it in. And he said he had people who would look over it, and then any changes that he thought he should make, he sent to me, like, highlighted, and I could approve or discard them.
Oh, okay. So you had a lot of creative license with it.
Yes. And, like, the cover design, he sent me thousands of fonts and said, pick the font you want. Okay. Make, like, a mock-up using, like, Paint and Word of what you want the cover to look like.
So you designed this cover?
Poorly. Like, it just had, like, fire here, and then this font, and it was just black. And so I sent that to him, and this is what his cover designer came back with, and I was like, that's the one. Very good.
And did you have to pay for the cover design?
No.
That's amazing. No. That's amazing. I mean, I have, my 3 books, An Angel's Journey was something, I self-published through Amazon, and this cover, you could pick covers, and once you picked it, like, you could own the rights to that cover for so many uses, whether you want to put them on bookmarks or posters or whatever. And then actually April Rain is very similar, where that cover I was able to pick something off of a format and I fell in love with it. Now, Dear Baby Get Out, I went to iStock Photo and purchased a photo so that I could buy it, because people think that's my belly, which it's a nice belly, but it's not mine. And so it's just interesting that, like, here I paid money for this one, these were part of the packaging, but you actually got a designer to make you a real cover.
Yes.
And then what about the Deadly Nights on the Island?
So that is a photo that I myself took. I used to be a photographer, so I took that at the island that I based this story off of. And so I was like, oh, well, that's perfect. And I think it fits, the
It's
story
beautiful
very well.
photo, really beautiful photo. Do you want to tell us what island, or do you want to just tell us about this island?
So I never specify which island it is in the book, because I want everyone to read it as their own favorite little vacation spot.
Okay.
So, if you've always gone to Cape Cod with your family,
Yeah.
you can imagine Cape Cod as this island.
Yeah.
It is based off of Long Beach Island in New Jersey. I've gone there every year since I was born with my family. So if you know Long Beach Island, you can find every place in there has a real life equivalent.
Ah.
And that is one of my
So
favorite
you've changed
things.
the names of certain places, because this way you could really put them in. So it's, about a vampire, which I find fascinating, because I am not I guess I've watched Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but, I'm not into vampires, but, like, it's fascinating that you chose a vampire. Can you talk about a little bit why you chose this kind of character? And, I know there's a lot of, like, sort of symbolism in the book, so.
Yes. So, for starters, I'm obsessed with vampires. Like, even my jacket, that's Damon's jacket from Vampire Diaries. Like, I'm...
All right, we're touching Damon's jacket.
I'm just like, it's, at this point, like 60% of my personality. But I also wanted to make Felicity, the main character, a vampire, because it gives this weird juxtaposition of being young and old at the same time. She's a 96-year-old woman in the body forever of an 18-year-old. So, she doesn't have really a place in the world, right? She will not fit in with a 96-year-old crowd. She doesn't fit in with an 18-year-old crowd. So where is her place? It makes her kind of very isolated. And I wanted to sort of do that because I think a lot of youngish people, like people around my age, find themselves in this weird position where they simultaneously feel young and old.
Yeah,
and
not sure where they fit in.
Yes, especially with, like, the way the economy is now, you'll have a master's degree, you'll be working a job with a bunch of high schoolers, and it's like, you can't afford a home, you can't get married, so are you young? Like, all the marks of adulthood you're not hitting, but you're in your 20s, you're getting into your 30s, like, and I wanted to kind of make a character where people like that could relate.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely relatable. I mean, of course, thinking, oh, it's a vampire story, I'm not into that, but, like, knowing what she's going through and relating it to your own life, really, I mean, a lot of books do that, and you've just picked a genre that, I'm not as familiar with, especially because, familiar writing about, because I don't write about vampires, and I know it's very, popular. The fact that, you based it on some, real life stuff that you've gone through, and brought in, you've definitely brought in some of your own kind of spirituality into this. You're director of religious education in the Catholic Church. So, it seems like, oh, Catholic Church, vampires, horror. How does this all work? Like, how do your co-workers feel about this?
They always look at me with kind of a mixture of, like, surprise and, like, a little bit of shock. They're sometimes a little bit of, like, almost like, oh, like, this guy's like some kind of weird, like, sinner. It's like, I'm allowed to write about it. I'm not.
You're not practicing it.
Doesn't forbid you from writing about vampires. And the funny thing is, like, I always say this is a mystery that happens to have a vampire in it. Everything in it, other than the fact that she's a vampire, is completely real to life. This one is purely fantasy.
And what makes this one more fantasy?
It takes place in a completely different world. Like, this is our world with a vampire in it. This is its own world.
And this is the mind of a writer because you've had to create an entire world.
Yes.
And do you want to tell us a little bit about the world?
This one?
Yeah.
So,
Or the world.
well, so the name of the world in this is This World, like capital T, capital W. And that kind of goes into the way they name things and view everything is if you're the best at something, you are like, you'll be the richest. If you're the best blacksmith, you will have the most clients, the most money. If you are the best school, the academy they go to is the academy because it's the best. Everything else has like a name, like Greendale Academy or something. That's not the name of one of them in there. But
right, so if you go to the academy, it's the prestigious one. If you just go to John Deere Academy, that's just John Deere. It's not the academy.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so I mean, so it's like creating this whole world, I mean, really does kind of reflect a little bit of our own society and how we put value and respect to certain things, I think, you know, good or bad.
Yes.
So, yeah, you definitely have a creative mind, and we know, you know, that God gives us our creativity and how we use it is our own free will. So, you know, you're right. Like, you're putting the vampire in a story. So it's not, oh, I'm telling my memoir and I'm a vampire.
Right.
I mean, these are like really creative stories. So, you know, these are ones that you've written with your name on the book. And, you know, you can get them on, you know, Amazon and things like that. But you've written literally, and I even made notes of this, like, I mean, you've written 5 novels, 30 short stories, and an entire YouTube script for a show. But none of them have your name on it.
Correct.
Because you've been a ghostwriter. Like Ghostbusters. But like, what is a ghostwriter? Like for me, I think, oh, are you talking to ghosts and writing their stories? Because sometimes I think that's what I'm doing. But like, what is a ghostwriter? How did you get into it?
So I actually got into it when I had a brief stint of being unemployed, and I was like, I need money. What can I do? Well, I can write, and I'd spoken to a comic artist years ago when I first published Deadly Nights. I was having like small creators kind of like advertise on their page, and we got to talking about it, and he said, yeah, there's this website called Upwork where people post jobs. It'll be like, looking for contemporary romance writer, 20,000 words, willing to pay X amount of money. And you write a little cover letter. Sometimes they'll ask you for samples of your own writing, and then you submit the like it's called like a proposal on their site, and then they can go through their proposals and pick who they want.
So it's Upwork.com?
Upwork, yes.
So you went there and you can pick the genre that you want to write about. I mean, are some memoirs? Because I have a lot of people who approach me and they're like, oh, can you write my story? This is what happened. And I'm like, you can write your story better than I can. I can take your story and twist it a little into like a fictional tale for sure. But, you know, to write a memoir, you want to be, you know, authentic for them.
Right. There are people who want people to write their memoirs. I would never, simply because I would be bored out of my mind.
Yeah.
But, yeah, they have all sorts of things. And they have like looking for a beta reader. So I've done beta reading on that for
And you've
people.
gotten paid for that.
Yeah.
That's like so amazing. Like you know, there's these worlds out there where people are working hard and doing things and making money, which is awesome to hear about. But like you're helping other writers write.
Right. And
because they're you know, putting their name on the cover. It's their book because it is their story.
Yes.
But they didn't pick up a pen.
Right.
And you did all the pen.
And that's part of what I love about it. I'm essentially, because I think a lot of people have a story that they want to tell. Like, I was here, oh, I have this great idea, but I could never be a writer. And say, okay, I can be your hands, you be the idea. You know, I can help people live that dream. Because like, being a writer is my dream, right? But to be able to lend that talent to somebody else living that dream as well, getting their voice out there, that's satisfying.
That is so amazing. I mean, that's like a superpower. I mean, it really is. Like, to be able to, you know, take your hands and your abilities to do it for someone else. And actually, I mean, now that I'm saying that, I mean, I've been a florist for many years. So, yeah, you know, brides or grieving families come and say, this is the vision that, you know, we have. And then, yeah, I'm, you know, lending my body, my hands, my tools, my knowledge to create something that they want. So all of a sudden I'm having this epiphany that, yeah, that's what ghostwriting is. I've been a ghost florist, I guess.
Exactly.
But I mean, I find it really fascinating because, when they're telling you their story, and whether it's through the website or, I mean, most of them are through the website, correct?
All of them through the website.
Okay.
So the thing is, the way the website works, once you agree to like a price, they fund it, and so they put it in an escrow account. So if they were to like back out after you write the story, say, oh, never mind, you still get paid. Like they can't rip you off, and you can't rip them off.
That's nice.
If you're using a website like that and somebody tries to take it off the website and be like, oh, well, what if we did this through Venmo? Don't.
Okay.
Because you're not protected.
Right. You want to stay protected. So when they're, once the contract's established and whether they verbally tell you, I'm thinking a lot of them probably verbally tell you, but, if they write out like, oh, I have this idea about, a cat and a dog that boarded a bus and, went to the Six Flags. Like, I want a story about that. They've shared this idea with you. How do they stay protected that you're not going to take the idea to use it on your own, whether you're going to use it in a fictional way or to say, I can do more with the story for me?
So you sign an NDA giving over the rights to all of the material. And so, like, if I would be writing one story and I'm like, oh, I like this character I'm using.
I'm going to back you up. What's an NDA for people who don't know what an NDA is?
NDA is a non-disclosure agreement.
Okay.
So I cannot tell people what is going into the book, what's going on behind the scenes with the book. I have to essentially pretend I have no idea. So if I've been hired for a 3-book contract, I've written the first one, but I know how it's going to end because we've discussed that with the client. I can't then go on like Reddit and go, oh, this book I bet you is going to end like this. That's illegal. I can't do that.
Okay. And you can't necessarily say, oh, I'm working on this book for so-and-so.
So depending on the NDA, some of them have like, you can't even say like, oh, I worked on this. Some of them don't include that. I would never say that I did publicly anyway, because one, I'm a professional and I have standards. But 2, why would I be advertising a book for somebody else?
Right.
If I'm going to be telling people I'm writing a book, I have 1,000 books that I'm working on for me.
Yeah, you want your... So they pay you a flat fee, and you don't get royalties from the book?
No.
So all the royalties are theirs.
That's sort of the trade-off. And a lot of people be like, oh, but they'd be making millions off your work. They could. They could be making 0 off my work. I get the money that I was agreed to make. And, I don't have to worry about getting a publisher, advertising, any of that. It's out of my hands. I collected my check.
And how far do you have to take it as far as having it edited, having it, formatted, having, copy editing, all that? Do you have to do all that?
So generally, so I'm not an editor. I will, I'll write it. I will go through it best I can, send it over. They'll usually have somebody go through it, send it back to me, and say, hey, can you make these changes either to the plot or, you spelt these things wrong. I'll fix those things. Occasionally, if it's a plot thing that I think is a dumb suggestion, I'll tell them that, and it's up to the client to decide if they go with my idea or the editor's idea, and then I give it back, and then they have an editor probably do a final edit.
So do you send them like chapters at a time or just the whole thing?
So that's a kind of a tough question.
Because I feel like if you send chapters at a time, they may want to change a lot. I don't know.
Usually it'll be like, so if I'm doing a 30,000 word book, I'll get paid for the first 10,000 words. I get, a third of my final pay.
Yeah.
Second 10,000, third 10,000, and each 10,000 they go through it. The issue arises if I'm writing sort of a skeletal structure as I go along, and I'm going to flesh it out later at the end. The first 10,000 or the last 30,000. No, sorry.
Yeah.
Not a math guy.
Yeah,
I'm a writer.
30,000, 10, yeah.
The last 10,000 words may not be 10,000 chapters at the end. It may be going back and adding 5,000 in chapter 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
To get it all, especially with like a mystery.
Yeah.
To get it all, the little things that connect at the end. A lot of times you don't know those things until the very end.
Yeah, no, it's so true. I mean, when I did, especially April Rain, I have to go back to change certain things. And then even realizing I have to introduce like a description earlier. If it's very important that description has to go in earlier. Like if he's, all of a sudden in chapter 14, he's smoking cigarettes and it's the first time you saw he was a smoker. Like some point I might have needed to plant that scene earlier because that, kind of describes his character a little, even though it's, I don't know,
exactly
wrong to say, but it's true. So yeah, are you getting rich from all this?
Not yet.
Not yet, but soon.
I mean, I hope so. I hope my goal. I have a vision board above my
good.
bed.
Yes, tell us. A vision board. I mean, most people I think know you kind of different ways, but you cut out magazine things, put them on. I do this and put them on. And say, okay, Angels, you work on that, and I'll do the work.
Yes.
You figure out how I get to vacation in Bahamas.
Yeah, well, and I think that really helps me stay motivated. My friends are always saying, "Oh, you're so dedicated. Like, how do you stay so motivated?" Well, if I can see what I'm working for every day, I wake up and it's the first thing I see. How could I not be motivated? I have a vision. I'm following that vision. So I want to win the short story contest for this literary magazine.
Okay.
I've been.
Have you submitted yet?
Yes.
Okay.
I've gotten my name and title in the honorable mentions I think 5 times, and they did publish one of my stories. I took 8th.
Nice.
I want number 1 though. I want to be first.
Okay.
So that's on there. I want to get on the New York Times bestsellers list, which I'm hoping my next book does.
All right.
I want to have one of my books made into a movie or a TV show.
That's what I want to do.
And I want to get hired to write an original script.
I can see. And the more you're talking, I'm like, I can see you doing something like that because, especially for network television and things like that, when they have a series show, they kind of know where they want it to go, but they need a writer to write it. So for them to say, okay, we have a 30-minute episode and this is what's happening in the scene, it just sounds like you would just flow with it.
Oh, absolutely.
And nail it to the word count and everything. And and that's awesome because you need writers, you need directors, you need actors. I mean, it really takes a village to bring some of these stories to life. I mean, to write a book, I mean, it can be a single one-man show. But if you're not a writer, then you need the ghostwriter. So now you've brought in a 2-man show. And, if you don't want to do the formatting and the copy editing and all of that, then you want to bring in, this is the book that you brought in, a publisher. So, there's all these different ways to, bring people together to work together. And, it sounds like there's more of a piece of a pie for everybody. It's not always fun to eat a whole pie by yourself. It's more fun to share.
Exactly.
So, I mean, this one you did self-publish, so, you're getting all the royalties from this.
Yes.
The ghostwriting books, we know you're paid contract fees and, one and done, wash away, that's it, go on to the next job. But now this one, you have a publisher and, like you said, he paid you to get the book and to do all the work for you, which is awesome that you didn't have to pay for that. But do you have to pay him anything now?
No.
Okay. Royalties or anything?
So I don't pay him anything. Every time a book is sold, he gets a portion of the profit. I get a portion of the profit.
So that's where he's making his money for doing all of that editing and stuff, which is awesome because, when you have a publisher willing to take a little percentage of the profits and not charge you a fee, they believe in the sale of the book.
Yes, exactly. And he did tell me, and maybe he was just gassing me up, but he did tell me of all the books that he's been publishing, he said this is the one that actually kept his interest the whole time.
Yeah.
And he was like, he was like, it's taking me longer than I would like to do it because I keep getting distracted actually reading the plot as I'm editing.
I love that. Well, that's the partnership of light and shadow. I mean, there's so many metaphors in there with the partnership with the publisher and the fact that, he's trying to bring the light to the story into light, but the shadow is he wants to be the client reading the book also. So that's really cool. I mean, I really congratulate you on both of these books. I am fascinated with the ghostwriting, which I'm sure my audience is too, because everybody, like I said, everybody has that story.
Yeah.
And so many people want to get it out. And I can't tell you the amount of phone calls and emails I get where people are like, oh, can I work with you? I want to write my story. And I'm like, well, I'll sit down with you and help you come up with an outline. And now, and you can break that down. Like you break down your outline, as you know, and you're like, okay, I'm going to tackle, whether you do it in order or you do it out of order and then you bring it together. But, it's like once the outline's down, they're like, okay, so how do I start this? I'm like, you have to write that story.
Right.
And they're like, well, but this is, and then they'll tell me the whole story, and I'm like, now put it on paper, Yeah. And I mean, and I've been guilty of the same thing because I'll tell the story before I've written it sometimes, but I've learned to dictate it into my phone. Do you do this?
No, because a lot of times I'll be dictating to it, and it
changes.
It'll mess it up to the point where if I copy and paste it into a document, and my friend Catherine oftentimes will like edit my things. She'll put it as like the comments, I have no idea what this is trying to say.
Oh,
like
yeah,
it messes me up.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just because I speak too fast or if it's because I have like a slight North Jersey accent, but
Well, I know I can talk fast, and so I've learned to talk slow to Siri, and it does, because my voice has to go slower. It doesn't catch up with my brain, and then I get what was I going to say? So I prefer the pen. But I've told my clients, like, even if you dictate it into your phone, at least you've started somewhere. So that you have the story. Oh, I really love every part of this conversation, especially because I'm like not one into vampires, but it's like, here we got this blood-sucking vampire who, is living the life we all live, trying to find where we fit in. And, I guess sucking wisdom out of the elders and sucking wisdom out of children so that, we can all kind of thrive. So these 2 books are your books.
Yes.
So where can the audience find your books?
So you can find both of these on Amazon. The easiest thing to do would be if you can type my name in.
Michael Chirichella.
I can spell that. Chirichella. And they'll both pop up. They'll be the first 2 searches if you type my name in.
Okay, and I will put that in the links below. Maybe we'll even have them come up on the screen. We'll see how that goes. I want to thank you so much for coming in. I've just learned so much myself. I'm fascinated with your writing. It's, definitely perked my interest to, read, but also like, I flipped through very quickly and, what was the first thing I said? I'm like, oh, nice fonts. Like only one author to another, because, it's like the layout of a book, needs to be, for me, it's important for it to be aesthetically pleasing. When you have like a paragraph that's like a whole page, you're like, oh, wait a second, or you don't see the dialogue. So they came out really nice. So thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
I hope my audience reaches out to buy your books, and maybe, who knows, go to upwards.com and hire you to be a ghostwriter.
Yeah, and if you want to keep up with my writing adventures, you can also follow me on Instagram at Michael Chirichella Books.
Michael Chirichella Books. You're an Instagram guy. I got to get on Instagram.
Yeah, my biggest hurdle is that my name is just difficult for people to spell.
Chirichella. It's a beautiful name. I mean, it reminds me of, like violins and Italian. So, well, thank you. And I want to thank Studio 954 for making this show possible. And I want to thank you, the audience, for tuning in each week to meet new guests, fabulous guests like Michael Chirichella, and, learning about our writing processes and, starting your own writing process. So at this time during the show, for those of you who are new, we give out a writing prompt.
Ooh.
So, we're here to learn how to write. So when the show ends, set your timer for 5-10 minutes. And today is going to be it's always a little bit different, but because we've talked about ghostwriting, and maybe some of you don't want to write the story yourself, but your story is important, can you just take a little time, and whether you want to just make a bullet point of the story that you want to tell, or actually start just writing the story of what you'd want to hire someone, if you were to hire a ghostwriter, what you would want them to know about that story, how long you think the story might be, and why it's important to be told, because that's one way to start telling your story. Thank you so much for tuning into yWrite. I'm Angela Grout, and I'll see you next time.